Welcome, welcome, welcome. It has been a bit of time and well, I've been quiet for a while and it's honestly because of a lot of issues I've been having, mainly with the servers, to be honest with you. But I should be making a few more videos sooner now. But we've had a big e-recycling tech haul and there was a whole bunch of equipment that was getting thrown into a skip. And we managed to get it all after asking permission. So this here is probably the best thing in terms of servers that we managed to pull. This here is a HP ProLiant, there it is, DL580 G5. Or a DL580 G5, I forgot the 585 is the AMD model. And this thing is a dusty old beast. And what's very peculiar about it is that this operator panel is installed correctly. It is the right way up, as you can see there by the LED indicators, yet the power button and VGA are upside down. How interesting. Now this server is a big boy. It is the top line of the DL580 series when the G5 came out. This was the best beast you could get unless you went with something like Itanium or a blade system. And man, this thing, from what I read, it was running up until about the end of 2018, from what I could find. Now, I've gone through and done all the data destruction duties, so there's no data left on this thing at all. And I went ahead and installed a fresh copy of Windows Server 2008 using an ISO file from VLSC. I didn't install 2008 R2 because this thing has ATI onboard graphics, which might shock a few of you. But for anyone who's dealt with servers in the 775 or 771 era, you'll know the ATI ES1000 chip was very common before the Matrox G200 came along. And I actually haven't plugged my monitor in, which would probably be helpful. Right, monitor plugged in. Now, if you notice, that switch down there that we've got plugged in is a new one as well. That also came from the e-recycling collection. Obviously, the bigger one there I've covered in a previous video, which was a eBay haul. Now, this thing is very dusty, which is kind of today's objective, is to restore this server back to its former glory, be in the top of the ProLiant range. As you can see, this thing is no sucker, especially for its time. Yeah, this thing, does it actually have an operator panel? I think that might be an additional thing that you can install. I don't see that panel installed on ours. Oh, and they're, oh, never mind. I thought this here, this bit that curves down was a bash, but actually this is an access lever. So I'll have to have a look in there in a bit. I am very curious about that pop-out panel though. I'll certainly have to see if there's a module we can get to install that, because that'd be very cool, I think, to put on. This thing does have 4 power supplies, 4 processors as far as I'm aware, and a lot of memory. I believe it supports up to 256 gigabytes of DDR2, which for its time was mental, because if any of you remember like the PowerEdge 1950, 2950, those things would only go up to 64 gigs of RAM, and you wouldn't be able to really fit much more in that. But yeah, this thing's looking pretty cool. As I say, it was a fresh pull from e-recycling. It's been thrown into a skip, so it's going to be quite dusty inside, I think, because they clearly haven't cleaned it before. Anyway, let's fire this thing up and take a look at it spec-wise, I guess, what Windows actually reports. And the jet engine takes off. Now this thing will quiet down in a bit once it finishes posting. There we go. There we go, 16 gigs of RAM, 4 Intel Xeon processors at 2.93 gigahertz. And we've actually got a firmware update recommended for one of our drives. See, a lot of people complain about servers being noisy, but honestly, once they finish posting, pretty quiet like this. You can just talk over it normally. Now you also have to bear in mind this thing is running off hard drives. I've reinstalled Windows on the existing hard drives that were in it after wiping them. So it is going to be a little bit sluggish compared to the newer servers that I've currently got. I've installed Server 2008 Data Center, seems most appropriate for A, a home data center, and B, I mean this thing's 2008 era, so I'm not going to put 2016, 2019 if it even run, or perhaps 2012 on it. But give that a second to log in, and there we go. That's it. This is what you get. But no, this thing is pretty cool. As you can see here, we have 16 total CPUs, logical CPUs. I believe it's 8 cores and 16 threads, so 2 core per processor. And it appears we have, there you go, 16 gigabytes of DDR2 installed. Very nice. So let's go ahead and see if we can get CPU-Z installed, I guess. Save that. And that will get us our CPU-Z. There we go, lovely stuff. So it appears I may have installed a 32-bit version of Windows. Yep, I've installed 32-bit. That was a bit silly of me, but oh well. So here we go. These are the CPUs we're dealing with. The Intel Xeon 7350, or X7350 rather, running at 1600 megahertz right now with a boost to, I think it said 2.4, so not too shabby. 4 cores, 4 threads per CPU. And then we have the ProLiant DL580 G5 named there, and the BIOS is probably out of date considering it's still on the 2007 one. And we do have 2 gigabyte DIMMs in there. And obviously we have the ATI ES1000, which I believe I still haven't got any drivers on for. So that'll be the next port of action, will be to get these installed. But yeah, for the time being, I'm going to shut this down and we're going to crack it open, I think. Let's just get that switched off and we can crack the lid. And here we can see the guts of the server. Now obviously we do have power still applied, so we're not going to pull anything out. But yeah, you can get a good overview of it. And you will instantly notice off the bat we are missing some slots down here. And that is because what would go here is one of 2 modules. And I believe you could either get a PCI extender. So if you want to use PCIe, you could get one for them. You could get one for PCI X if you're using older cards, the much bigger ones. Or you could just get regular PCI. And I believe these here are all just PCIe slots. Yeah, these are all X8 linked. And here will be our controllers for those. I'm not actually sure what these are. I believe they're probably VRM related, maybe. Not hugely sure. And back there we can see the guts of the ILO chip and everything else. So obviously over here we have our, if you can just see that there, our ATI ES1000 graphics chip. That's going to be nice and warm, I bet. Indeed it is. We have our HP Smart Array. I'm not entirely sure which model it is. But that one there has 512 megs of cache, as indicated by the little sticker there. What else we've got? We've got the ILO 2 chip there. Not entirely sure what this is. I'm assuming it's some sort of PCIe to root complex or whatever they call it. Sort of controller there. There's the actual LSI chip for the RAID card up there. CMOS battery on there as well, and the squeaker can, as well as the USB hypervisor key. So if you're running VMware ESXi, that is where it'd go. And if I pop the ISO up there a bit, you can get a much better view of that. Lovely stuff. And obviously, as usual for Ethernet, you tend to have either Intel or Broadcom. And in this case, we have Broadcom chipset. So lovely stuff. I'm not actually sure what I want to put inside this server yet. Kind of not decided. I was debating a graphics card perhaps. I would try something like this Mellanox Connect X2 adapter, but I have a feeling like this server might be a little bit too old for it. And especially as we can, considering we're only dealing with small hard drives that aren't going to go very fast, is it really worth one of these, or is gigabit going to saturate it anyway? So, a bit of things to think about there. And one thing I definitely do want to have a look at though is the memory configuration and everything down there. You can see that down there. That's all on a big tray that slides out. Yeah, it'd be quite interesting to have a quick nosy at. We do also have 6 fans. These are pretty big jobs. Not playing around with these. Yeah, these push a fair amount of air, and it's definitely where all the noise comes from when you switch this thing on the first time. Nice. One thing I do like about HPs though is how easy it is to install and remove fans, just even with these little adapters. Quite nice. My only concern is that this plastic here might become a bit brittle over time, but no issues with it yet. Hasn't snapped, so that's all cool. I don't really think there's much on the other side of this. It appears like there is power. We have 2 little, by the looks of it, 12-pin slots there. My guess is that these will either run to the main board or possibly up to the front back plane here where all the drives go in, because we've instantly got 2, by the looks of it, SCSI cables. Perhaps it's some older form of SAS. So if we actually have a look at one of these drives, that'll tell us everything. So these are SAS by the looks of it. So have a quick nosy at the specs. So 146 gigabytes, 10k RPM, and it's going over the SAS interface. And yeah, pretty nifty stuff. I don't think there's a year on these. Not entirely sure. Not one that I can see off the bat anyway. If I see it, I'll pop it on screen. And these are Seagate rebrands, as you can tell by the ST model number there, which is very nice. And since these are properly HP authenticated drives, these will also work in modern G8s. They won't complain about the drive not being a valid HP one. We can actually get a good look at all of the dust that's built up over the years here. And to be fair, this thing, for what it is, for how old it is, it's quite clean. There is some visible dust. If I pop the ISO up a bit, you might just be able to see some very thin bits around the fans there. But honestly, this thing's pretty clean. And I do love the addition of the postcode reader there. Not a lot of modern servers have that anymore. And there you go, there's a good amount of dust you can get a good look at. Lovely stuff, be able to give all that a good clean later. But yeah, I suppose this was a bit of a short video, but something I definitely wanted to have a good look at and sort of just show you all. Because it's not every day that I get big pickups like this, because we've got tons of equipment to go over. A lot of the rest of it's more just networking gear, which I know a lot of people don't find very interesting because it's, well, networking. Let's just remove power there, give that a second to drain, which it has done. So that definitely needed a bit of persuasion, more than I'd like usually. But yeah, we've got it out now. As you can see, it all comes on this big tray, which is nice and dusty. What have I done with the brush? There it is. Let's give that a quick de-dust. Oh, dust gone everywhere from that. Okay, cool. So there's this little blue clip here that you push back, and that releases the main cover there. And honestly, this thing is pretty clean. Pull the ISO right the way up so you can see some of the dust build up. And yes, these are full copper heat sinks, none of that aluminium rubbish that we have nowadays. So we have this tiny little latch down here that comes up like so. And then our heatsink can be removed with the CPU stuck to the bottom of it. Lovely stuff. So maybe we're not going to get a solid look at that CPU, but yeah, you have a lot more pins on your CPUs than that nowadays. And here are our memory modules now. We can get a closer look at those. So it looks like we have Micron stuff, always nice to see. 2 GB of PC2, so DDR2, 5300F. Yeah, just looks like your bog standard 667 megahertz memory. And what is interesting, so I've spotted, it says here J9 memory riser board, and it also has one over here for it. So I wonder, perhaps there's another model up from this thing, or maybe there's some sort of other riser that allows you to put even more memory in. I mean, 256 gig back in that day was still a very decent amount, but always makes you wonder when they have things like that. But yeah, I think I'm going to get this thing all cleaned up, put it back together again, and we'll fire it up one last time, I think. So I'm just down to the last processor now. Thought I'd go over the installation procedure. So once you've actually lined up your CPU and dropped it in the heatsink, there's a little lever down here. It's a little silver one. Just pop that forward. And I don't know how easily you can see it or not, but if I push that back again, you'll notice the heatsink moves too. And it's similar to the older laptop style sockets, where the socket will physically move when you lock it. And I have gone down most of this server and pulled most of the dust out. Not all of it I can get to. And it appears this here is actually an inlet temperature sensor, so I'm just going to see if we can dedust that a bit. As you can see down there, it says temp sensor. So I believe this was when HP was starting to bring in their what they called the sea of sensors, which you'll see it if you fire up a modern one like a G8 or a G9. When it's initializing, you'll see it will say sea of sensors initialized, and that's exactly what that is. They just stick temp sensors everywhere, and it can produce really nice graphs about where the heat from your server is coming from, and obviously you can adjust your fan profile accordingly. Everything on this does seem to have a little bit of dust on it. Not a whole lot though, to say it's been running for endless amounts of years, but yeah, all nice and shiny now. But yeah, now that we've pushed that lever over, all we have to do is push this guy over, and then this little bit here just needs pushing down, and there we go. That's going nowhere. But yeah, I've done a good cleaning over this. Oh, there's a bit of a squeak. Gone over all of the voltage regulation modules. Just pulled one of them out here. Pretty beefy stuff. I believe that's a delta sign, so these are delta units. That one does actually have a bit of dust on it still, but it's not going to hurt. Well, it's not going to hurt anyone or the server, I don't think, having a little bit of dust. So yeah, take a look at all those the pins on the slots there, just for the VRMs. There's a little bit more dust down there. Maybe I didn't fully do this one. Much better. But yeah, really packing some stuff on these. So let's just go ahead and pop that back in. There isn't any sort of retaining clips for these. They sort of just slot into place with just force, and it will wiggle around a bit, but it is nice and secure in there. It's not going anywhere. And I just realized as well what these ports here are. These aren't just PCIe, these are QPI links, similar to the those big QPI cables there, which get used with an X3850 X5 for joining two systems together. Well, it might not be the cleanest thing in the world, but I think we're at a point now where we can safely test it. I've reseated the CPU and memory board again, stuck the big metal sheet over it. So that's now back in there. Let's see if this thing blows any more dust now that it's all loose. Not bad. There you go, all of our processors, and the 16 gigs of RAM is still there. ILO 2 standard. There you go, so it's a Smart Array P400. There you go, nice and quiet now. Squeaky can still works. Oh, Yamaha just crashed, so that's going to be interesting. But as I was saying, there's not really much left for me to do with this now. It's done, I guess, until I find an actual use for it. Yeah, cool. I'm happy with this. Very nice. So yeah, until next time, I think that's really it for this big old beast. And we've got a lot more equipment to go through still. All of this came in. Obviously the X3650 on the top is where I've moved one, but all of the stuff beneath that, you can see there's more HP servers and some more Cisco equipment, and plenty of UPSs, of which I've already installed 2 of them, as they were 3,000 VAs and still sell for about £2,500 there. And they're now powering the new servers that we'll also see a new video on at some point. I keep saying I'm going to make it and I never do. It's all recorded, it's just been a bit of a bumpy ride getting to the editing stage. But yeah, these are very nice UPSs. But yeah, until next time, I think that kind of sums it up. We've taken a look at the server, given it a good clean. And that red flashing light is because we haven't got all the power supplies plugged in, but we don't need them. So yeah, catch you in the next one. Goodbye.